this video, we're going to talk about profit maximization for firms in a perfectly competitive market. So first off, of course, we want to make sure we understand what we mean when we talk about firms being in a perfectly competitive market. So when we think about perfect competition, there are a couple of very important assumptions that we make, or think about it, they're the characteristics of the market. And so first, what we have is that there's a large number of firms or producers, and they're all making the same identical product or service. This, we also use the term homogeneous. Right? The good is homogeneous, meaning that it is identical. Right? There's no differentiation between the product that is being made by firm A or B or C or D. Now, when you combine these first two assumptions, right, so you have a lot of large firms all making an identical product, well, that means that each firm is going to be a really small share of the market. And so this gives us the following characteristic for these firms, that they are price takers. And what does that mean? Well, that means that individually, no single firm can affect the price in the market. They just take that price as given. Okay? So our firms are going to be price takers, and we're going to illustrate in a minute what that means for us. Another very important assumption is that we have free entry and exit. Free entry, what this ensures for us is that in the long run, we're going to have zero economic profits. Now again, we're not talking about profit in the accounting sense, but in the economic sense. And remember that when we talk about profit in the economic sense, what we're including in our measure of costs that's different is the implicit cost, right? The opportunity cost of the entrepreneur's time, of all the resources. Okay? So when we say zero profit, we don't mean that firms aren't making a profit in the conventional accounting sense. So what does, we're going to start off here in this video, I'm going to really focus on this first part here, the fact that firms are price takers. And we're going to think about how that affects firms' profit maximization. So first we're going to start here, this graph, this is the market. Okay. Here we got our price and quantity. And here on the right, we're going to illustrate the graph for an individual firm. And so here I'm going to use a lowercase q. We'll use uppercase Q for the market output, lowercase q for the individual firm's output. So we'll just go ahead and draw demand and supply curve. So note, this is the market, so this is the market supplies. All of the firms that are currently producing in the marketplace. Right? If we take their individual supply curves, aggregate them up, this is the supply curve we'll get. Of course, our market equilibrium is here, where supply and demand intersect. And so what do we mean when we say that a firm's a price taker? Well, we take this price that's determined by the market, right, by the aggregate supply and demand in this market, and we bring this over here into the firm's graph. And the fact that this firm's a price taker means that the individual firm's demand curve is just a horizontal line at that market price. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the firm can sell as much output as it wants at that price, in this case P star, right? Sell as much as it wants at that price. If it tries to raise the price even a little bit, it's not going to sell anything, right? Because all of these other firms that are making the same identical product are selling at the price of P star. So why would any consumer want to buy this firm's output at a higher price when it can get the same exact product elsewhere for the lower price? Okay? It also means there's no incentive to lowering your price below P star. Okay? Or as we'll see in equilibrium, that there really isn't, because that price is going to get pushed down to the lowest price that firms are willing to accept. Okay? You could sell as much as you want at that price, P star. So we're going to also put in here our marginal cost curve. Okay. Now, what's important to note here is that with this price, right, the demand curve at that price also gives us the marginal revenue. Okay. Now, what is marginal revenue? Well, marginal revenue, remember, is the change in total revenue over the change in quantity. So in other words, how much will your total revenue go up by when you sell one more unit of the good? Now in this case, marginal revenue is just exactly equal to the price in the market. Because again, you can sell as much output as you want, and produce and sell as much as you want at that price of P star. So when you go to sell another unit, you're going to receive P star. The key thing here is you don't have to lower your price in order to sell more. Okay? So that's what being a price taker gives us in this marketplace. Marginal revenue is equal to the market price. Now we have a marginal cost, which, as you should recall, is just the change in total cost over the change in quantity. Right? So both of these are defined over changing our quantity. Now, what do we have then in terms of our marginal analysis for the firm's decision making? Well, let's say that this price is at $7. Okay? And let's say that at some particular level of output, say it's 3 units here, let's say that here marginal cost is only $2. Okay. And if you can imagine at 2, right, that marginal cost is a little bit higher than 2, but just focusing on that third unit, there you have the question of, well, should the firm produce that third unit of output? Well, take a look at what happens when they produce that third unit. The cost at the margin of producing that third unit is only $2, but when they sell that third unit of output, they're going to receive $7. So what does that mean in terms of their profit? Well, that means that their profit is going to go up, right, by $4. And we could keep going along with this logic. And if you look at the 4th unit, 5th, 6th, and say all the way up here to the 7th unit of output. Right? For each of these other units of output, up until the 7th one, the increase in costs associated with producing that next unit of output is less than the revenue, the additional revenue the firm is going to receive when they sell that unit of output. So by producing the 4th, 5th, and 6th units of output, the firm is going to add to its profit. Okay? And so the profit maximization rule that we have is that firms produce up until the point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Okay? You don't want to stop short of that because each unit, up until, in this case, the 7th unit, ends up generating more revenue than it will cost you to produce it. Now, we don't want to go beyond that point. And so in this case, producing the 8th unit of output would cost, say, $8.50. Well, in this case, that means that the firm, by producing that 8th unit of output, would actually incur more costs to produce that 8th unit than it will receive additional revenue when it sells it at $7. All right? So that would be a net loss from that 8th unit of $1.50. And so that would lower their total profits. So this is the decision rule in terms of how much a perfectly competitive firm should produce. Now, that's only the first of 2 very important questions that the firm has to answer. The other question is, should the firm produce at all? And we're going to take that decision and think about it in the context first of the short run and then in the long run. And in so doing, we're also going to describe what the firm's supply curve looks like in the short run and the long run. So in the next video, we're going to start taking a look at the firm's decision making, right? So we've already covered the quantity rule. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to discuss that, what we call the shutdown rule in the short run, so whether or not to produce, and then we'll put them together.